Daniel Cross had exactly 12 minutes to get to the Grand Meridian Hotel. His daughter Sophie's school recital started at 6 o'clock sharp, and she was performing her first violin solo at 41. Daniel had learned that being a single father meant never missing the moments that mattered. Traffic crawled through the downtown district as the evening sun painted the city in shades of amber and gold. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, mentally calculating whether he could still make it on time. His phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Dad, are you coming?" "Almost there, sweetheart," he typed back quickly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The hotel was hosting the annual youth music showcase in its grand ballroom. Daniel had dropped Sophie off 2 hours earlier so she could rehearse with the other students. Now he was racing against the clock, his suit jacket hastily thrown on after leaving his construction site office. As he pulled into the circular drive in front of the Grand Meridian, something caught his eye. A woman in a gray business suit was struggling near a black sedan. At first, Daniel thought it was just an awkward goodbye or a disagreement, but then he saw her face, pure terror. A man in a black mask had her in a chokehold, dragging her toward the open car door. Another masked figure stood by the vehicle, scanning the area. The uniformed doorman stood frozen by the entrance, his hand reaching for something in his pocket. Bystanders stared in shock. Nobody moving. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to park the car and run inside to see Sophie perform. She needed him. She was waiting for him. But this woman needed someone right now, in this moment, or she would disappear. He thought of his late wife Jennifer. She had been taken from him by cancer 5 years ago, but she had always told him the same thing: do what's right, even when it's hard. Daniel threw his car into park right there in the middle of the drive and jumped out. "Let her go!" he shouted, his voice carrying across the hotel entrance. The masked man holding the woman jerked his head toward Daniel. For a split second, everyone froze. Then Daniel was running. He was not a violent man by nature. He built things for a living, homes and buildings that would shelter families. But he had been a Marine before that, and some training never leaves your body. The masked man shoved the woman toward the car door. His partner moved to intercept Daniel. Daniel ducked under the reaching arms and drove his shoulder into the first attacker's ribs. The impact sent both men stumbling. The woman broke free, gasping, her hand clutching her throat. "Run!" Daniel shouted at her, but she didn't run. Instead, she grabbed a large planter beside the hotel entrance and swung it at the second masked man as he lunged at Daniel from behind. The ceramic shattered against his shoulder, sending him spinning. The doorman finally sprang into action, shouting into his radio security, "Front entrance, now!" The first masked man recovered and charged at Daniel with surprising speed. Daniel tried to dodge, but the man caught him with a glancing blow to the temple. Stars exploded across his vision. He staggered back, his shoulder hitting the side of the black sedan through blurred sight. He saw the woman on the ground, crawling away. The second attacker was moving toward her again. Daniel forced himself forward, grabbing the man's jacket and yanking him backward. They crashed together onto the pavement somewhere distant. Sirens wailed. Hotel security burst through the entrance. 3 men in dark uniforms. The masked attackers hesitated, looked at each other, then sprinted to their sedan. The engine roared to life. Tires squealed as the vehicle accelerated away, leaving rubber marks on the pristine driveway. Daniel sat on the ground, breathing hard, his head pounding. The woman rushed over to him, her hair disheveled, her suit jacket torn. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Thank you, oh my God. Thank you." Security surrounded them, asking questions, calling for police and ambulances. Daniel glanced at his watch. 6:15. He had missed it. Sophie's solo was over. His daughter had waited for him, had looked for his face in the audience, and he had not been there. The weight of that realization hit him harder than any punch. "Sir, we need you to stay," one of the security guards was saying. "The police will want statements." Daniel nodded numbly. His phone was ringing. Sophie's name flashed on the screen. He answered with a heavy heart. "Sophie, sweetheart, I am so sorry, Dad." Her voice was small and hurt. "Where were you? Everyone else's parents were here." "I know, baby. I know. Something happened and I couldn't." "You promised." The line went dead. Daniel closed his eyes, fighting back the burning sensation behind them. "Is everything okay?" the woman asked gently. She had sat down beside him on the curb. "Despite her own ordeal, I missed my daughter's recital," he said quietly. Her first solo, the woman's expression crumpled, with understanding and guilt, because someone needed help. Daniel corrected. But the words felt hollow. Police arrived within minutes. Followed by paramedics, Daniel refused treatment for his head. Despite the paramedics' protests, the woman, who introduced herself as Victoria Hayes, also declined the ambulance for the next hour. They gave statements to detectives. Victoria was a corporate attorney, she explained, who had been working on a high-profile case. Someone wanted her silenced. The attempted kidnapping was clearly professional. As the police finished their questions, Victoria turned to Daniel. "I don't know how to thank you. She said you saved my life. Just glad you're safe," Daniel replied. He felt empty, hollowed out by the knowledge that he had let Sophie down. "You lost something important because of me," Victoria said softly. "Your daughter's performance. She'll forgive me eventually," Daniel said, though he was not sure he believed it. Victoria pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my personal number," she said. "Please, if there's anything I can ever do." Daniel took the card out of politeness and put it in his pocket. By the time he made it inside the hotel, the recital had long ended. He found Sophie sitting alone in the lobby, her violin case beside her, her recital dress wrinkled from sitting too long. Her teacher, Mrs. Palmer, stood nearby, looking relieved when Daniel appeared. "I'm so sorry," Daniel began. But Sophie just picked up her violin case and walked toward the exit without looking at him. The drive home was silent. Every attempt Daniel made at conversation was met with one-word answers or silence. That night, Sophie went to bed without saying good night. Daniel sat alone in the kitchen, his head in his hands. The bump on his temple throbbed. He had done the right thing, he knew. He had done the right thing, but it didn't feel right. The next morning, Daniel woke to find Sophie already dressed for school. She was making her own breakfast, something she only did when she was upset with him. "Sophie, we need to talk about yesterday. You promised, Dad," she said. Her back to him. "You always say family comes first, but you didn't come, I know, and I'm sorry. Everyone asked where you were," she continued, her voice breaking. "I told them you were coming, that you never missed anything important, and then you just didn't show up." Daniel moved closer, but she stepped away. "I waited for you," she whispered. "I messed up my solo because I kept looking for you in the audience." That broke his heart completely. "Sweetheart, there was an emergency." "There's always an emergency, Dad." She grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. "Mrs. Palmer said she recorded everyone's performances," Sophie said, without turning around. "You can watch mine on video, like everyone else who didn't care enough to be there." The door closed behind her. Daniel stood in the empty kitchen, feeling like he had failed at the one job that mattered most. The days that followed were tense. Sophie was polite, but distant. She practiced her violin in her room with the door closed. She did her homework without being asked. She was the picture of a well-behaved child. And it terrified Daniel. He preferred the arguments and the door slamming. This cold politeness felt like losing her. On Thursday afternoon, Daniel's phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Cross? This is Victoria Hayes." "Oh, hello? I hope you don't mind me calling," she said. "The police gave me your information for the case file, and I wanted to check on you." "I'm fine, thank you. And your daughter? Were you able to explain what happened?" Daniel paused. "She's not taking it well." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Cross, Daniel, would you allow me to try to make this right?" "That's not necessary, please," Victoria insisted. "Let me at least try." 2 days later, on Saturday morning, a sleek silver car pulled up in front of Daniel's modest house. Victoria Hayes stepped out, dressed casually in jeans and a soft blue sweater, but she was not alone behind her car. A black SUV parked, and out stepped 3 people carrying instrument cases. Daniel opened the door before Victoria could knock, his face confused. Sophie appeared behind him, curious despite herself. "Hi, Sophie," Victoria said warmly. "My name is Victoria, and I'm the reason your dad missed your recital." Sophie's eyes widened. I want to explain what happened, Victoria continued, and I brought some friends who would like to hear you play from the SUV. A woman with silver hair approached. Daniel recognized her immediately. Helena Morrison, the principal violinist from the City Symphony Orchestra. Behind her came two other musicians, a cellist and a pianist. Sophie's mouth fell open. Your father saved my life last Tuesday, Victoria said gently while he was helping me. He missed the most important thing in his world, which was watching you perform. She knelt down. To Sophie's eye level, that's the kind of man your father is, Sophie. Someone who helps people even when it costs him everything. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes. But I needed him there, she whispered. I know you did, Victoria said softly, and he needed to be there. Believe me, nothing hurt him more than missing your moment. Helena Morrison stepped forward. Your teacher, Mrs. Palmer, sent me the recording of your performance, she said kindly. You have real talent, Sophie, even with the mistakes you think you made. Really? Sophie's voice was small. Really, Helena confirmed, so I thought, perhaps you might play for us now and let your father hear what he missed. Sophie looked at her dad. Daniel's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I would love nothing more, sweetheart, he said. They set up in the living room, the modest space transformed by the presence of professional musicians. Sophie was nervous at first, her hands shaking as she raised her violin, but Helena sat beside her, offering gentle encouragement, and then Sophie began to play. The melody was simple, a classical piece. Daniel had heard her practice 100 times, but hearing it now, seeing the concentration on her face, the way her small fingers moved across the strings with growing confidence, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. When she finished, everyone applauded. Helena praised her technique. The cellist asked her questions about her musical training. Sophie glowed with pride and attention. Later, while Sophie showed the musicians her room and her collection of sheet music, Victoria sat with Daniel on the porch. Thank you, he said simply. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did, Victoria replied. You gave up something precious to help a stranger. That kind of goodness is rare. She looked at him seriously. The police arrested the men who tried to take me. By the way, they were hired by opposing counsel in my case, someone who will now be facing criminal charges themselves. I'm glad you're safe because of you, Victoria said. And I wanted Sophie to understand that her father is a hero, not just to me, but to anyone who believes in doing the right thing. Daniel shook his head. I'm no hero, I just did what anyone should do, but most people don't, Victoria said quietly. Most people drive past, most people pretend not to see. You didn't. Inside, they could hear Sophie laughing, the sound like music itself. That evening, after Victoria and the musicians had left, Sophie climbed into Daniel's lap, something she had not done in months. I'm sorry I was mad at you, Dad, she said. You had every right to be, Daniel replied, holding her close. Miss Victoria explained everything. Sophie said you were being brave. I was being your dad, Daniel corrected, trying to teach you by example that we help people who need it. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, she hugged him tighter. Miss Morrison said I could audition for the youth orchestra next month. She said she'd help me prepare. Daniel smiled, his heart full. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Will you come to the audition? Sophie asked. I will be in the front row. Daniel promised. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. What if someone needs help? Sophie asked seriously. Daniel thought about it. Then we'll help them together, he said, and we'll make sure someone records your audition. Just in case. Sophie giggled, and the sound healed something in Daniel that had been broken months past. Sophie did audition for the youth orchestra and earned a chair in the second violin section. Victoria became an unexpected friend to their small family, stopping by occasionally for dinner, always bringing Sophie new sheet music or stories about her own childhood learning piano. She told them she had taken a leave from her high-pressure corporate work to reevaluate her life. The kidnapping attempt had reminded her what truly mattered on the evening of Sophie's first orchestra performance. Daniel sat in the audience beside Victoria this time. Nothing would make him miss it. As the young musicians filed onto the stage, Sophie caught his eye and smiled. She was nervous, he could tell, but she was also ready. The orchestra began to play, and Daniel listened with a father's pride when it ended, and the audience applauded. Sophie took her bow with the other musicians afterward. In the crowded lobby, Sophie ran to Daniel and threw her arms around him. "You came," she said. Even though she had known he would always, Daniel promised Victoria smiled at them. This makeshift family that had formed from a moment of crisis. Thank you," she said to Daniel quietly, "for everything." "Thank you," he replied, for helping Sophie understand as they walked out into the cool evening air. Daniel held Sophie's hand. He thought about that day outside the hotel, the split-second decision that had cost him one moment but had ultimately taught his daughter something far more valuable, that doing the right thing is never easy, that love sometimes means sacrifice, that heroes are just ordinary people who choose to act when others freeze, and that sometimes, when you give up something precious, life has a way of giving you back something even more beautiful. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who believes in the power of doing what's right. Subscribe for more stories about courage, sacrifice, and the unexpected ways our lives connect. Leave a comment below about a time when helping someone changed your life. Your story might be exactly what someone needs to hear today.